justicia, la dice esta sociedad. Abre brecha, compañero, que ya sopla viento de agua, tiene que espantar el perro antes que se eche la miada. Abre brecha, compañero, que ya sopla viento de agua, tiene que espantar el perro antes que se eche la miada. El pueblo que refranero canta con su propio rezo, aunque el rosario de penas lleve guindando en su pecho. Y hay que afinar el tiro, es decir, la puntería, que aunque diga groserías, el pueblo tiene derecho. Y no se me ponga recio, pero es la pura verdad, que no hay peor mala palabra que esta misma sociedad, que la mayor grosería la dice esta sociedad.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another webinar of the Massachusetts Peace Action. Thank you for the speakers and for Terry, who will moderate the evening. Today's webinar is about a diplomat, Alex Saab, who was kidnapped in Cape Verde. We are talking about criminality on different levels. The first criminality of the United States government is the imposition of the sanction. Then we have the arrest and the kidnapping of a diplomat in Cape Verde. And the third issue and criminal issue is the corruption which is involved in this action, because we learned that the United States government is about to build $400 million embassy in Cape Verde, a country the size of more or less Long Island with 155,000 people. You wonder what they are doing with our money, spending $400 million. What are they building? Is it a military base? Is it intelligence gathering base? What is it? So again, thank you for joining us. Let me introduce you to Terry Madson. Terry Madson, who will moderate the webinar, is from Code Pink, a longtime activist, organized delegation, a leader of the movement Sanction Kill, and she's joining us from Mexico City. So Terry, thank you so much for joining us, and the microphone is yours.
Thank you so much, Omar, for the introduction, and I'm so happy. I have to say just a big thank you to all of you at Mass Peace Action for the invitation to participate in tonight's webinar. It's always a pleasure to work with you and to be among friends, and so many on the panel this evening are friends as well. So I'm really looking forward to this event. I'm going to introduce you two speakers simultaneously, because they're going to basically share the current legal situation with Ambassador Saab and give a little background, and then we'll move on with Reverend Felipe Texera and Danny Shaw. So let's start this evening with Irina Acampora. She's joining us live from London tonight. She is part of the international legal team for His Excellency Alex Saab. And we're going to have William Kamakaro join as well. And William is long-time wonderful friend, I'm pleased to say, and he's a Venezuelan American activist living in New York City. As an activist, he makes a significant contribution to the Alliance for Global Justice. You can find them at afgj.org, and also a significant contribution to the Council on Hemispheric Affairs, and that's at coha.org. William is also a radio host and frequent guest on WBAI New York City, a Pacifica radio station. So welcome, Irina and William. Wonderful to have you with us this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm speaking today on the behalf of International Legal Team of His Excellency Alex Saab, who, as we know, has been detained in the Republic of Cape Verde since 12th of June last year, and the detention has been maintained till the present day, amounting to 428 days insofar. I will introduce the case, the most up-to-date developments, as well as we'll speak about the hearing, which is ahead of us on the 13th of August, next Friday, this Friday, at 9 a.m. Cape Verdean time, where we will present the unconstitutionalities in front of the Constitutional Court, on the basis of which we truly hope the court will decide to stop the extradition and immediately release His Excellency Alex Saab. I will start by saying that the case of this detention is far from an ordinary case of detention and human rights violations. It's emblematic of a series of flagrant and systematic violations of international norms, and has been from the beginning punctuated by errors, violations, and challenges to all legal rationality. It is worth highlighting the colossal efforts that have been undertaken by tenacious and rigorous defense team. Our strategy has led us to file complaints with the ECOWAS Court of Justice, the United Nations Human Rights Committee, and to make serious legal and diplomatic efforts to try and put an end to this totally unjust and illegal situation, which is keeping a Venezuelan diplomat on a special mission in arbitrary detention under the most undignified conditions. We have obtained common sense decisions from the international bodies ordering the immediate release of Alex Saab from the ECOWAS Court of Justice, for example, or requesting the suspension of the extradition procedure in accordance with the interim measures of the Human Rights Committee, or calls for diplomatic dialogue from both the United Nations and the African Union. But the government of Cape Verde remains deaf to all appeals to reason, to all appeals to comply with the law, to all appeals to dialogue. And I might say that in the absence of immediate release of Alex Saab, everyone loses. He has been detained for more than a year in totally arbitrary manner and risks extradition for purely political reasons to a state that openly displays their hostility towards Venezuela and the president of Venezuela. But this case, the ultimate loser in the absence of immediate release will be Cape Verde. Cape Verde has agreed on the instrumentalization by the United States to violate an impressive array of international norms, from the rules of international diplomacy to the principle of diplomatic immunity, to human rights and its own constitutional norms. Cape Verde has destroyed, because of this case, the rule of law and, most importantly, its own values. Cape Verde has made the gamble of defying both ECOWAS Court of Justice and the United Nations by denying the authority of both. These violations, these denials of justice, these challenges will not go away. They will be remaining engraved and will weigh extremely heavily on Cape Verde at the international level. Make no mistake, this case is emblematic of the failure of the rule of law, but above all is an indelible stain on the international reputation of Cape Verde. This is the introduction so far to the case. If I may continue, or if I may give the word to any further, because I suppose, the next, yeah, please.
Let me say some little things about the case, and also the implication of this case. As Irina has been saying, this is a very emblematic case. It's a very, because we are talking about someone that is a diplomat that have been arrested without any there is any proof of anything against Alex Saab. So there is no alert from the Interpol. There is no any proof of anything, and is a diplomat. So it's basically a violation of the a big numbers of international law. This is a case that is affecting 39 countries that are right now under sanctions. For example, Venezuela is right now under a severe sanction from the United States, and people cannot, I think that this is something that some of you know. I know that Terry knows these things. People don't have gas to cook. People don't have gasoline. It's very difficult to fill the tank. You can spend days, I'm talking about 10, 15 days in a line to get some gasoline. And there is another big problem that we are facing in Venezuela, that is the diesel. There is no diesel. Big truck cannot get the food from the countryside to the city. So, and there are some reports that around 600,000 tons have been lost. 600,000 tons of food produced in the countryside has been lost because the big truck don't have diesel to transport the food from the countryside to the city. And also the consequence of this is that everything gets very expensive. Even in the local food is getting very expensive. There is a lot of blackout, something that never happened before in Venezuela. The public transportation is a mess, it's a disaster. And there is no way to fix the public transportation because of the blockade and the sanctions imposed by United States. There is a lot of scarcity of medicine, especially for chronic people that have some kind of chronic sicknesses. So all this kind of stuff are going on right now in the middle of this mess created by United States sanctions. And the Venezuelan government, through Alex Saab, was trying to create a channel to get all those staples from Russia, from China, and especially from Iran. So there is, for example, an article here in English that is called "How a Vast Network Allowed Venezuela to Evade USA Oil Sanctions." First of all, evade USA oil sanctions that are illegal. So, and then this article that is in English in El País from Spain basically said that the main man working to create all these channels for Venezuela government to evade the sanctions is Alex Saab. So basically, he had been incarcerated for 1 year without any proof of anything. He had been basically kidnapped just because he was trying to get food, he was trying to get medicine. He was also involved with, if you remember, some of you probably remember, several big oil ships that went with gasoline to Venezuela several months ago. So he was involved in that. So, and I think that was around those months that he was stopped in Cape Verde. And that was the last, I would say that was the last thing that they really accept from him. They wanted to really stop him, and not only to stop him, they also want to see and to know all the network and the links that is working to provide food for the Venezuelan people. And this is the serious thing here, because this could apply to any other country that is under sanctions right now. Any other country, like in the case of Latin America, Cuba, Nicaragua, but we are talking about 39 countries. If they are successful to kidnap Alex Saab and bring him here to United States, this is something that will create a precedence, and they will do that with any other country on the planet. I think that Irina can be more.
I can continue.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, and I would like to pick on this note that indeed, at the time of the arrest, neither United States or Cape Verdean courts were aware that Mr. Saab is a special envoy of Venezuela. And now coming back from 12th of June to the decision of the US courts, by the Court of Appeal of the 11th Circuit of the 6th of August, it's very significant. The significance of this fact has been brought indeed into a focus by this court. And now the appeal will proceed to the merit stage and further ordered the Department of Justice to file its response within the next 30 days from the 6th of August. Alex Saab, and what I want to add as well, that now there is indeed a diplomatic immunity. What this decision means, the diplomatic immunity has now been recognized as fundamental issue of Mr. Saab. And this is a very important development so far for us, which will, we hope so, influence as well and allow to defer the extradition to the United States, to defer or to indeed be a point to cancel the extradition. So the US courts in their decision agrees that Alex Saab was and remains a special envoy of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and he was and remains entitled to diplomatic immunity. And as a direct consequence of which, the Miami indictment of July 2019 against Mr. Saab would have to be dismissed, because as a diplomat, Saab would be immune from prosecution. And that would in turn mean that the US extradition request filed in Cape Verde would have to be withdrawn, and Alex Saab would have to be immediately released. So this is, again, reiterating the point that of the special envoy on a special mission, as you mentioned, William, that the fact has been ignored since 428 days by the courts of Cape Verde, the facts that have been dismissed on every occasion at every level. So the Cape Verdean, this also important issue here, which we will be representing in during the hearing in the Constitutional Court, that it shed a light on the Interpol, on the fact that when Mr. Saab was arrested, there was no red notice, and he shouldn't have been arrested at the first place. The fact that Cape Verdean Prosecutor General admitted just very recently, and a year later, that neither Cape Verde nor Interpol were provided with a copy of an arrest warrant at the time of Mr. Saab's arrest, 12th of June, 2020. As damning as that admission is for both, accepting the fact that Saab was and remains a lawfully appointed special envoy of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, means that Interpol should never have issued in record time the red notice against Alex Saab. And without the red notice, Cape Verde, acting on instructions from Washington, could not and should not have arrested Saab. It also casts considerable doubt on the rationale provided by Interpol when red notice against Saab was canceled on the 25th of June, 2020. And this is, I think I will stop here, but just, I think this point is very clear for everyone where we are at the moment and how important is the fact that diplomatic immunity has indeed been considered as a merit in the US courts. So over to you, William.
Yes, I just want to mention that it is extremely important for us to express solidarity with Alex Saab in these days, especially in front of this probably final hearing that's taking place this coming Friday. So we are inviting everybody to organize in their communities or close to so we know that some people in Washington, they will organize a demo in front of the embassy in Washington, D.C., the Cabo Verdean embassy. So we know also that some people will be mobilized in Boston. So it will be great for people in Massachusetts to get to the Cabo Verdean consulate there. And also to use Twitter, the social network, Facebook, to use all the social network to express express solidarity with Alex Saab, because it's extremely important, as I said, for not only for Alex Saab, for his family, but also for 39 countries that are under USA sanctions.
Thank you, William and Norina. Norina, do you?
I just also want to add that so far, Mr. Saab has been denied his right to attend any open hearing. And we can only hope that this final hearing, which is profound to his life, that he will have, he will be allowed to present himself at the hearing and speak for himself at this opportunity. So it's very important, because in every hearing so far, it was not possible. And I think we all understand what that means in terms of his right, his basic human right to attend a trial.
I really want to thank you for joining us from London this evening. Really,
thank you.
Really it's a pleasure to hear from you directly.
We're very happy to share the latest developments, to make everyone aware what's going on. There's been a lot going on. We had a lot of support from yourselves, and thank you for that, direct and indirect. And the same applies to the I'm speaking of the behalf of the family as well of Mr. Saab. We're all aware what's going on, and whatever happens, we can certainly count that we have support in the United States, which is great. Thank you again for that.
Thank you so much. So I want to just tell the audience, because I neglected to mention this when we first started, that I'm sure all of you are going to have a lot of questions. This case is incredibly complicated and incredibly important, and very international, and also speaks a lot of US foreign policy and the extrajudicial reach of the United States around the world. So you're going to have questions and comments. Please put them in the chat. And after our next two speakers have presented their talk, we'll go to the chat and we'll entertain your questions. So Irina, I hope you can stay with us. I know it's late in London, but
absolutely. Yes,
it's really great that that you're here to address some of the more complex issues.
If there is time later, I can still update what we're undertaking so far as well in Cape Verde, in parallel with Constitutional Court hearing that's going to take place this Friday. So
Wonderful.
In the end, I'll stay with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, William.
Thank you.
So next, our next speaker is Reverend Felipe Teixeira, and he was part of the humanitarian delegation that went to Cape Verde late May, early June of this year to investigate the case, and specifically attempted to meet with Ambassador Saab. So let me tell you a little bit about him. He has a very impressive background. He is a Cape Verdean religious leader and has been on the front lines of the battles for justice in Boston throughout the region. He has marched shoulder to shoulder with people's movements fighting anti-racism, police brutality, sexism, anti-Muslim sentiment, and anti-LGBTQ bigotry. So he's on the front lines of all these important movements. He has fought tirelessly for the rights of immigrants, workers, and unions, people with disabilities, for fully funded public education. And he's also been a staunch defender of Black and Brown communities. So welcome, Reverend Teixeira. It's wonderful to have you with us this evening. And please tell us a little bit about the delegation that you participated on earlier this summer.
You better unmute, Reverend Teixeira.
Again, thank you very much for all of you who are here with us today. And this is a chilling case, and it's a case of injustice. And I had the privilege to go with my brothers and sisters, Sarah Flanders, Roger, and Pericles Taviano Tavares, who's also a candidate for the president in Cape Verde right now. He's in Cape Verde right now. So the four of us went to Cape Verde in June, and it was a great moment for us Our goal was to speak with the people, to speak with the government, to knock the doors, and we did that. We spent 1 week working day and night, preparing ourselves to deliver our concerns, what is going on with the case of our ambassador-elect Saab. I knew most of the people. I know most of the people in the government because when they come to America, they have met with me. I had participated in events, but unfortunately, when I went there this time, they closed their doors. They show their ears, and they close their eyes, and it shows to me this is what people are complaining year after year, what Cape Verdean government does. It was not strange to me what they're doing to Ambassador Alex Saab. So we arrived at the island of Saab. That's where he's in jail right now, in a residence jail. We tried to speak with the chief of police there for no avail. We went to 2 stations, one at Santa Maria, and then the other one in Espargos. So there was always an excuse and reasons why they were not available. But then we decided to go to the residence where Alex Saab is. So we are stopped by the police officer and the military, all with the machine guns and so forth. So we had a good conversation, very interesting. So what we noticed that the military guys, they are armed with the U.S. Weapons. Those machine guns, they are U.S. weapons. It's a NATO weapon they had on and so forth. They're well protected, and they had a pistol by their legs and so forth. So very interesting movement. That's not what I knew about the Cape Verde military. So and sometimes we kind of wonder if some of them were like Black Americans, because we couldn't tell if they were really Cape Verdeans officers and so forth. But again, after all that, we're waiting to receive authorization to meet with Ambassador-elect. That wasn't given to us up to today, actually. Then we flew to Praia, which is the capital of Cape Verde, on Sunday. We were in Praia, Sunday evening. And Monday, we start moving. We start knocking the doors and so forth. So we went to the Attorney General's office, went to the Minister of Justice, Department of Justice. We went to the U.S. Embassy and so forth. But again, there was a clear understanding that they didn't want to talk to us. But the great thing we did was to inform the people who Alex Saab is and what he was doing, and what they're saying is all about lies. There's nothing of that. So we had a lot of support for the young people. Even today, the young people are talking to me through Facebook about the case of Alex Saab. They're all involved. They all want to see something done. And it's amazing to see how many have followed us through Facebook and so forth. So we, as a team, we believe that we have accomplished a lot because we marched the streets of Praia. We walked it. We went. And people noticed our presence. People understood what we're there for, and they really want to be part of it, especially the young people. We met with some government people off the record. There were people who were like ministers and so forth that came and met with us and so on, although they didn't want to be in public, but they told us, they talked to us, they were very open and honest about the case. After our visit, we came back to America and we kept going. And as you all know, we mobilized people in DC. I was in DC at the Cape Verde embassy. I met with the ambassador of Cape Verde and the staff and so forth. We had a good representation of Venezuelan and Latin American people there, so it's great. Although again, at least the ambassador received us. I mean, he listened to us, although he had his own judgment, he had his own concept about the case already, so it didn't make difference at all. In Boston, we also had a demonstration in front of the Cape Verdean consulate in Quincy, Massachusetts. We went there with the school bus driver union members, Haitians, Cape Verdean, and American Caucasians, my friends. We went there and we delivered the letter, the decision of the United Nations. And the consul, which I know also personally, spoke to me and received our letter, the decision of the United Nations Human Rights Division, and stamped it and signed it, and to acknowledge that we were there. Now, the question is this: what are Cape Verdeans doing here in America and back in Cabo Verde? We have to understand, although Cape Verde, they proclaim to be a democratic country, that's not true at all. There's no democracy in Cape Verde because people cannot speak. They're scared of speaking. They're silenced. Just for the fact the doors are closed, they'll not speak to us in public. It has to be all closed doors and so forth. That shows to you that we still Cabo Verde. As a Cape Verdean national, I say is a dictatorship country, because we can see in all the decisions of the court and so forth. Even when our delegation went to the Supreme Court to deliver our habeas corpus, we could see the way even the staff of the court treated us. They will not talk, they'll not even smile and so forth. They're like serious, like it was the end of the world and so forth. But people on the street, they will pay attention to us as a group, see our movement on the city of Praia and so forth. That was powerful. Okay, Cape Verde is we call them diaspora here in America, especially the young people. They are very concerned about this case, and they keep telling us, keep fight, don't give up. The comments we receive are very profound, very great. And for instance, on the July 5th, which was the independence of Cape Verde, of Cabo Verde, and also it coincided with the independence of Venezuela, the Prime Minister was here in America. He was here in Boston to celebrate the Independence Day, which it's Bolon. He came here to look for money for his boy, one of his friends, to run for president, Carlos Vega, who was the former ambassador of Cape Verde to the U.S. So he came here more for money, not for independence celebration. William was there too, so we shut down that celebration. I mean, our participation was great. I mean, our speakers, the noise we made, and so we deliver a clear message to the Prime Minister and to the people who was around them and so forth, around him. And also we came back to Brockton because they had a reception in the afternoon. We had a great demonstration. There was a lot of people that support us, were there with us. There is a movement called Diaspora. They are on Facebook. They're doing a lot of work. They supported us a lot. People are very concerned and they are very involved in this case and so forth. As a matter of fact, I mean, we had young people who was protecting us in Cabo Verde, in Saab and Praia. And they were like, they walked with us, they were telling us where to go and how to go and so forth. So, and they understood our mission. And although the media was against us, especially against me, because I'm not a Roman Catholic priest, addition. So they tried to diffuse the message, but we made that very clear. It was not about me, it's about Alex Saab freedom. It's about Alex Saab injustice being done by the Cape Verde government. So I stop here, and if there's any questions, I'll be very happy to answer the questions.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Really
Yes.
very happy you were able to join us this evening. And again, I'll ask the audience, please post your questions in the Q&A. I see there's quite a few building up, and we'll get to those after our next guest, who is Danny Shaw. And Danny is a professor at City University of New York, an international affairs analyst with Telesur, RT, and Hispan TV, as well as Press TV. And he's going to give us an overview of Cape Verde. He has been there. I think you've lived there, actually, Danny, have you not? And Danny's been involved in Latin America solidarity work for all his life, or since about age of 6. So really wonderful to have you with us, and always wonderful to welcome you as a friend and fellow activist.
Okay, boa noite, good evening. Good to be in good anti-imperialist company. I was in Cape Verde in 2009 with the youth movement that Felipe talked about, a revolutionary Pan-African anti-imperialist youth movement. And I grew up, born and raised on the south side of Brockton, and it does not get any more Cape Verdean than that, if y'all know anything about Brockton. So I probably heard more Criollo, the language of Cape Verde, than English growing up. So there's a fundamental question before us. Why is the Cape Verdean government kowtowing to US imperialism? If this is a sovereign country, why is Alex Saab now over a year preso, in jail there? And the question is that Cape Verde is not sovereign. Cape Verde is a textbook neo-colony, the same struggle that we see in the streets of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the same struggle we see in Brazil against Bolsonaro and fascism and imperialism. The homeland of Amilcar Cabral, of the original PAIGC, the revolutionary party of Cabral, of Cape Verdean self-determination of 1975, things have really shifted. So I want to give some of the historical context to understand why the Prime Minister and the President today, from the MPD, the quote-unquote democratic movement, the party in power, it's a neoliberal power in Cape Verde, why they won't meet with Sarah, William, Felipe, Roger, and the other compañeros. So I'll share my screen. This is a lengthy PowerPoint that I can share later on. I'm not going to cover all of it, but this is some of the popular education work that we do. The Cape Verdean comrades are very strong on Instagram in particular. So we do a lot of this popular education because we know Brockton High School, New Bedford High School, our high schools are not giving us this true people's education. So Kwame Nkrumah's classic work defining what neocolonialism is fits all too well. I'll just read one of these quotes. You can read the other on your own. The result of neocolonialism is that foreign capital is used for the exploitation rather than the development of the less developed parts of the world. Investment under neocolonialism increases rather than decreases the gap between the rich and poor countries of the world. And Cape Verde is a textbook case. When you go to Cape Verde, these 10 different islands with incredible economic potential, the Italians, as in the ruling class of Italy, own the hotels. Spanish capital run the telephone industry. The US government describes itself as the arbiter of land. They have this whole project dressed up like a sheep in wolf's clothing called the Millennium Challenge Goals. Portugal, the former colonial power, is now a neo-colonial power. So that gives a sense of how non-self-determining Cape Verde truly is. Here you have some of the images from Sal and Boa Vista and Santo Antão, these different islands. Who name these islands? The very names reflect a history of colonialism because Criollo is a mix of African languages, of course, with the colonial Portuguese superimposed on top. So you have this massive tourist industry, but who truly benefits? And one sociologist described Cape Verde is a manufacturing place for the slaves when the slaves were en route to Brazil, to Haiti, to the Caribbean. So we have all of these different colonial and neo-colonial connections. I don't have time for all these slides, but similar to how the Irish people in their quest for national liberation went through a starvation, it wasn't merely just a famine that came out of nowhere. The Cape Verdean people went through something all too similar, where in the course of history, tens of thousands of Cape Verdeans were forced to flee and died of hunger because of what was called the seca, or the colonial imposed drought. So I'll come back on our screen for 1 second here just to check in. Well, how do I do that? Hold on 1 sec. Well, I'll keep going because I can't. Oh, here we go. Stop share. I don't want people to be overwhelmed because there's upwards towards 40 slides. I'm not trying to cover all those slides. I'm going to cover another 5 or 6.
We can
and
send
I'm going to leave
slides later to people if you like.
And then I'm going to send that. Yeah, I'll have the link for everybody so that you can reference this. And again, this is some of the popular anti-imperialist education projects that we do in the community. And I'm going to let you know about some of these different leaders so you can follow them on social media and see their work. So when Cape Verde was still in the sphere of influence and part of the anti-imperialist camp, here you have what the Cape Verdean flag looked like. It didn't have Amilcar Cabral in that quote that's imposed on the flag, but that's the original Cape Verdean flag. That's the self-determining flag. Soviet Union collapses, the socialist camp no longer exists. Well, look at the 1991 Cape Verdean flag below it. Look how different it is. And this represented Cape Verde moving into the sphere of influence of the US, of imperialism. So just some bullet points covering that. Where are the Pan-African colors? Cachupa. Hopefully everyone can visit New Bedford, Brockton, Dorchester, Cambridge, and try the national dish, cachupa, from Cape Verde, which is also part of that original flag. So you go from a worker state to a democracy. The democracy is in huge quotation marks. One thing on Amilcar Cabral, because you'll see Amilcar Cabral on so many different t-shirts. There's a great quote. I won't read the whole quote by Lenin, and hopefully y'all stay in. Of course, you're going to read the slides that are up, so I've probably lost your attention. But this slide is classic because look what they've done, the mainstream corporate media, to Martin Luther King's legacy. Look how they've demonized the Malcolm X's, the Marcus Garveys. So when they can't vilify, they try to blunt the legacy. So they'll put Amilcar Cabral on certain t-shirts, but they never teach the true legacy of internationalism of Amilcar Cabral. Because Amilcar Cabral today would be with us on this Zoom and on the front lines of struggle back in Praia, São Vicente, in Brockton, in New Bedford, fighting for Alex Saab. So that's the work we have to do with our young people today. Here you have the different flags from Mozambique and Angola and Zimbabwe and Sao Tome and Príncipe and Guinea-Bissau. And if you just look at the flags, you feel the internationalism, you feel the Pan-Africanism. So the question persists for the prime minister and president and the partido today, the original partido of Amilcar Cabral. Where do they stand today? And we already answered that question. They don't stand for solidarity. They don't stand for internationalism. So I go deeper into the ideology of Cabral, but just one thing I wanted to highlight. If you want to get deeper into the Cape Verdean and Guinean revolution, this is a great place to start. This book here is amazing in terms of understanding fighting two colonialisms, women in Guinea-Bissau. A fundamental part of this revolution was women's liberation. When I was in Cape Verde, I never lived there. I wish, Terry. I was there for 34 days studying the language, building these international links. And I got to meet with different women combatants who were with Cabral in the Mata, in Guinea-Bissau, in Guinea-Conakry, fighting against Portuguese colonialism. So to hear about Cabral and to hear these firsthand stories of Cabral's legacy, he was the most gentle, revolutionary individual, just like the revolutionaries we look up today, whether it's we look up to today, like Evo Morales and Hugo Chavez and Asada Shakur, and we can go on and on. So I'll close out with I'm almost at 10 minutes. I'll close out with a few more slides, and then we can open it up to everybody else. There's the legacy of internationalism and what the Cubans call tricontinentalism, led by Ernesto Che Guevara. Amazing statue today in Cape Verde, a tribute to revolutionary Cape Verdean women. This is in Santo Antão, but you can just see from the statue, how beautiful that is. Neocolonialism. What is the Cape Verdean escudo? That's the name of the currency in Cape Verde. This morning, it's 93.94 escudos for $1. So if you're a young person trying to survive in Santiago, in Santo Antão, how can you stay in your homeland if your currency has been so devalued? So what they do to the Cape Verdean people is the same thing they do to the Mexican people and the Salvadorian people and the Ecuadorian people. Neoliberalism and neocolonialism is the same everywhere. So where I grew up with a lot of Cape Verdeans who were forced into survival mode on Warren Ave and Kalmar Street, where I grew up in Brockton. And this is the central prison back in Cape Verde, where a lot of these deportees end up. That's a deeper story than we have time for now. Reparations. Whenever we talk about the Cape Verdean national liberation struggle, just like the Haitian national liberation struggle, any national liberation struggle, we have to talk about reparations as part of a people's genuine second independence. And of course, the work that the Venezuelans are doing and the revolutionary Colombians to free Alex Saab. There's other huge social issues in the Cape Verdean community in the diaspora. No people chooses to be a diaspora. People become a diaspora because of neocolonialism. There's more Cape Verdeans who live in Lisboa, in Portugal, and in the diaspora in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island because exactly of what we're talking about, the neocolonial model. This was Malcolm Grazia, who was killed by the New Bedford police. This is Elder Fernandez, who we lost last year in Fort Hood. Here we have the Cape Verdean people in the streets. And again, I'll send this entire presentation, but here are some of the Cape Verdean revolutionary youth leaders: Supreme Overstanding, Expavi, Bachart. You can look up the work of Dr. Teresa Lima Neves. And again, a lot of these are Instagram accounts. So if you're not on Instagram, tonight is tonight is the night. So that's just one overview, as if it were possible in less than 13 minutes of the Cape Verdean struggle. I was just in Venezuela last month with some of the comrades on this Zoom, and the Venezuelans are framing their struggle against blockade, against a full economic war, as a struggle for a definitive second national independence, 200 years after the Battle of Carabobo, after Simón Bolívar's own transformation and the transformation of a country of what was called Nueva Granada, the Gran Colombia. And I think the Cape Verdeans today empathize and feel solidarity with that struggle for a definitive, genuine second independence, which means self-determination. And a key part of that self-determination is freedom for Alex Saab, a US political prisoner in a neo-colony, and freedom for all of our political prisoners, from Matulo Shakur, buried underground alive in Arizona, to Mumia Abu Jamal here on the East Coast. So free them all, from Alex Saab to Leonard Peltier. One struggle, one enemy, U.S. imperialism.
Thank you, Danny. You are muted, Terry.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for unmuting me. Thank you, Danny. So, wow, 4 fantastic speakers in a profound and very complex case. We have a lot of comments and questions in the chat. So I want to start. I'm going to just go through the top and combine the things that are related and get through as much of this as we can. We will stay together on this webinar for another 35 minutes max. So at the beginning of our presentation, I have a question. Do we know why Alex Saab, was headed to Iran? And I want to combine that with Yoav's comment. Yes, talk about buying oil, medicine, and food. So maybe Irina or William can talk about that, and because the buying oil, medicine, and food is part of why Alex was made an ambassador or special envoy.
I don't know, William, do you want to comment, or I can pick up afterwards?
Okay, yes. Now remember that Alex Saab he was born in Colombia, but his parents are, I think, from Palestine and from, I think, that from Lebanon. So I think that he speaks a little bit Arab and Germany, so he speaks several languages. I don't know exactly how many, but what I understand is that he has been traveling to that part of the world, and he knows that area very well. So he was very useful in that way. And he basically was established in relation with Iran to get food, medicine, and oil. In fact, we had the letters that he had when he was traveling and he was incarcerated in Cape Verde, when he was basically flying from Venezuela to Iran in the mission to get some medicine for Venezuela. And the most important thing here that people also should know is that this is a government, United States, that is always talking about human rights, that is supposedly the championship in human rights, and is prohibited in the middle of the huge pandemic. Someone to get food, to get medicine, in a country that tends to the sanctions, that have access to medicine in the middle of the pandemic. And that's critical to mention. And as I said, the oil, we were getting, he was getting gasoline from Iran because the big refineries are completely shut down because there are no way to replace all the parts that have been damaged, because all the technology that those refineries use are coming from United States and Europe. So right now there is a huge process to replace the entire huge part of those refineries with technology from China, from Iran, from Russia. That's what's going on right now. And so basically it's an attempt to suffocate an entire country, to trying to remove the government and trying to establish a regime change. And that's what we are looking right now. And that's why it's to use food as a political weapon against the Venezuelan people.
Thank you, William. So next we have, why was he picked up by Interpol? And two, what does the United States have to do with any of this? Are they policing the world regarding or using Venezuelan sanctions? And William's addressed some of that. Irini, maybe that's a good legal question for you.
First of all, it's do not think I'm giving any I share the facts. I share the views of our legal team, international legal team, and that's what I'm going to mention right now. So that's the question of the special mission that brings us to essential question, which is now again on top of the US decision, on top of our main arguments on for the hearing on Friday, which it's undisputable fact that Alex Saab has been and is a special envoy of Venezuela, and he was indeed assigned on a special mission, as we know it, from Venezuela to Iran to obtain foods and medicines during the COVID times. And what is also specified as by the Vienna Convention of 1961 on diplomatic relations and on the Special Mission Convention of 1969, it's essential that to be a diplomat, to have a diplomatic immunity, there must be a sending state, which is in this case Venezuela, and the receiving states, in this case is Iran, have undisputable evidence that special mission took place. And we have that. And at this stage, when you ask the question, what is the US, why is the US now disputing this? What's going on? So we also raised the question how the US may not accept the fact that special envoy is in transit in Cape Verde on the special mission from Venezuela to Iran. He had made a refueling stop. And without any arrest warrant, without a red notice from the Interpol, he has been illegally detained, which we say kidnapped, and that's the right word for it. And just here, I would like also to say that we have now filed very recently, a couple of days ago, criminal complaints against indeed the actors, the authorities of Cape Verde, who have made this happen, in particular, who are Attorney General and arresting officers in Cape Verde, who on the 12th of June contributed to the illegal arrest and detention of Mr. Saab. So this has been now, this will be now investigated in Cape Verde. We have serious complaints such as kidnapping, such as torture, such as robbery, because the confidential letters of Mr. Saab have been taken from his suitcase. So we filed all that, and in parallel with that, we're also launching the complaints, lodging the criminal complaints in Venezuela, because at the same time, and because it allows us extra-territorial jurisdiction would allow us to do such thing, Venezuela can also lodge such complaints against Cape Verdean authorities in particular, who I mentioned, and extend this potentially to anyone else. So this, what we have been doing so far, and this raises serious issues of who's responsible for an absolutely illegal arrest, detention, and 428 days of detaining Mr. Saab. So this is what I wanted to add now.
Thank you so much. So our next question is, what happened to the Iranian ships transporting fuel to Venezuela? Were they able to get in? This is from Catherine. Catherine, I think you're talking about the 5 original ships that arrived May of 2020, which so many of us participating on this webinar this evening were so very enthusiastic when the first one actually made it to shore. So 5 of those original 5 arrived in May. I can tell you personally, I was in Venezuela in December for the entire month, and then back, as Danny mentioned, in June for a few weeks. And on both trips that I was there, ships had come in, and I was actually in traffic behind some of the tankers that were transporting the fuel from the coast into Caracas to the gas station. So they continue to go through. Am I correct in that? Is there any of the 4 of you want to add to my comment? No?
Okay. I can respond.
Sure, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, those 5 oil tanks that made it now, geez, it must have been like a year ago.
Yeah,
They
May
didn't
of last year.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't just fly the flag of Iran. They flew the flag of humanity, of 1/3 of humanity that survives on an everyday basis under these illegal, criminal, unilateral U.S. sanctions. I remember there were 3 other tankers that I think were intercepted by the U.S. Navy in the Caribbean Sea. They were bragging about it on Fox News and other pro-imperialist networks, and then they were forced to go to Texas. And then I see a few questions here. Yes, this $400 million U.S. embassy in Cape Verde. This is a further beachhead, like the African command into African sovereignty. They're afraid of African unity. They're afraid of tricontinental unity. They're afraid of any shining example. We could never forget what happened in 2011 to Libya. We can't forget the ongoing war against Syria. Syria is the Nicaragua of 2021, and Nicaragua is the Nicaragua of 2021 because the war against Nicaragua has never ended. The lesson is that no matter how small a country is, I'll actually be in Grenada next week, and many of you all will remember the 1979 New Jewel movement, the Grenadian Revolution, the same year as the Sandinista Revolution. And U.S. imperialism spearheaded a war against Nicaragua, which could be called a medium-sized country, if you will. I mean, Grenada has 100,000 people. It's basically the population of Brockton. And in 1983, Ronald Reagan invaded and killed how many Cubans and how many Grenadians in Grenada? So no matter how small a country, no matter how big a country, like Venezuela, like Russia, like China, if they're not in the sphere of influence of the US, then the US will attack these countries through hybrid wars, through total wars, economic, diplomatic, military means, all out total war. So hopefully that responds to some of what people mentioned there in the comments.
Thank you.
I like to speak a little bit about that.
Please.
We had the privilege to visit the site where they're going to build this new embassy, so-called embassy. It's unbelievable. The place where they're going to build, there is a high school there. It's called Cônico Jacinto. That was a Portuguese priest who was a long time in Cape Verde, died, and so forth. So they built a high school they call Cônico Jacinto. It's a good chunk of land. And in front of the embassy, the high school now, is the parliament, is the Cape Verde government parliament. So basically, the so-called US embassy is going to control the Cape Verde parliament. It's going to be on top of it. And it's very strategical because it's faced to the sea. It's right there to the ocean. So it's just unbelievable. You can walk, because maybe not even 10 minutes to walk to the sea and so forth. So it's huge to compare what they're going to build. They're going to build a high school, a new high school for the Cape Verdean future people. There, we made some noise. And but again, people were not happy about it. The Cape Verdean people are very upset about it. But you know, as we said, the government, whatever decision they make goes. They never consult the people. they do whatever they feel like and so forth. And we made that very clear. You know, it's another way of U.S. imperialism stealing from poor people, vulnerable people, and so forth. And you know, all that money, you know, is not just embassy. But we all know that U.S. always want to build a military base in Cape Verde, in the island of this small island called Santa Lucia, which there is nobody there. They always want that place and so forth. Another issue that goes also to NATO. They want to train. They want the Cape Verde to be part of NATO, and that's. But we can see a lot of that happen already, because one of the problems we have now in Cape Verde is the Boston Police Department is going to Cape Verde to train the police officers there, and the behavior of the Cape Verdean police officers are just the same as the Boston police and so forth. And that's one of my concerns I have. And that day, actually, when the Prime Minister was here, we did spoke about that. We spoke loudly about what's going on in Cape Verde. So there's so much going on with the U.S. imperialism in Cape Verde.
I want to add something very quickly. Basically, I was the entire 2020 in Venezuela, and I was very close. I went to see these tankers that were arriving from Iran, because it was a very, very difficult situation for any Venezuelan at that moment, because there was no gasoline at all. And people mobilized to Puerto Cabello to receive the super tanks. And it was incredible to see hundreds of people in the middle of the pandemic just welcoming those super tankers, and very happy with the flag from Venezuela and Iran, celebrating that they had the courage, you know, to be there despite all the threat that they received from the United States. That was a very interesting moment to be in Venezuela, because people were extremely happy in all over the country.
Thank you, William. I think people all over the world were happy at that moment because of the international solidarity that it represented, and that the Iranian tankers basically broke the blockade against Venezuela. It was a pretty profound moment, and it must have been absolutely incredible to have physically been there to witness it.
Terry,
So,
I want to say something.
yeah, please.
Someone asked me a question individually, what can we do? And so I want us to spend the next few minutes talking about what can we do. To me, we as American citizens have a responsibility to expose and protest the crime of the sanctions, which are terrorizing and killing people in Venezuela. The government is using our money to do that, doing it in our name. This is something that we must do, and we must hold our representatives accountable. That is to say, of course, we want to change the US policy. So we need to hold our representatives accountable, to hold rally outside their offices, to send them letters, to expose the hypocrisy and the contradiction of our administration, the Biden administration, talking about a new rule-based international order. This is their language. And they are committing crimes against the whole country. They are kidnapping a diplomat, and they are engaged in corruption. So it's our responsibility to expose it, to show the contradiction between the good words that they are talking and actually their action. If we are not going to do it, then nobody will do it, because the media is just telling lies about the reality in Venezuela or the reality of kidnapping such a diplomat. So I say there is a lot that we can do. Join us, join a rally in front of your representative's office. just with a sign to expose it, to show the contradiction. So I believe that such an extreme case, and I think that, look, we need to challenge the morality of this type of policy, the morality of Madeleine Albright, the ex-Secretary of State, that says that it's worthwhile to kill 250,000 children in order to bring about a regime change in Iraq. We need to challenge this logic and reject this logic and expose it for what it is. It's bullying. It is illegal. It is criminal, and it is done in our name and with our money. So join us, join other groups. A lot we can do, and we will succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. I wonder, in following up on your comments, Yoav, Nino, I see you're participating this evening, and further up in the chat, you posted the Stop the Extradition of Alex Saab link. Could you repost that in the chat so it's front and center? And I'm going to go to this next question because it falls, it dovetails very nicely with your comments, Yoav. And my question is, what difference do the national and international law, the human rights laws, et cetera, make when we're dealing with a government, I'm assuming the US government, that does not have any interest in the law, national or international, and simply controls the world through illegal sanctions? How can you plead for Alex in a court full of people who ignore the law? And Alex is not the only person who has suffered this extrajudicial reach of the United States. So maybe all of you want to take a minute and comment on that. This extrajudicial reach of the United States and this this flat out ignoring of international rights and the respect and recognition of national sovereignty of other countries.
I was thinking how was it easy to corrupt Cape Verde government to take Alex Saab down. Because I believe the plane was trying to stop in Morocco, in Algeria, but they refused that, But Cape Verde was already, yes, bring us to Cape Verde, So we didn't talk about that. It seems to me that U.S. government is looking for countries who are vulnerable to this small giving, small offerings, like Cape Verde. I mean, as a Cape Verdean, I strongly believe that my government is well corrupted. It's because there's so much happening in Cape Verde, there's so many crimes happening in Cape Verde, even among the government people, that they're not accountable for, they're not responsible for, they're not in jail. And here we have a man who, my mission was to tell them this is a humanitarian man. This is a man who had a good heart, who's helping the poor, who helping those who have nothing, And I was telling them, this is a man even in jail in South, in the island South, was helping Cape Verdeans. Young people was telling me, say, Bishop, he was helping us. When somebody's sick, we go there, we talk to him, he was helping us, and so forth, So, and another thing also that we here in America needs to know, Venezuelan government was helping Cape Verde. Students were given full scholarship to go to Venezuela to study. So Venezuela was never an enemy of Cape Verde. To the contrary, it was helping Cape Verdean government, the children of Cape Verde, to become somebody tomorrow. And that's why when I went to Cape Verde, I said, where are you guys? You need to speak out. I mean, you need to support the freedom of Alex Saab, But again, the way the U.S. government has controlled Cabo Verde is tremendous, because even the way the U.S. ambassador in Cabo Verde, dealt with us, in silence, it was tremendous, because I know the U.S. ambassador in Cabo Verde, U.S. He was here, met with us in Brockton before he was. He is an appointee of Trump, by the way. He's still there. So he spoke with us. He told us what he's planning to do in Cape Verde and so forth. And a lot of us, I mean, didn't understand exactly what was the game, you know. And now we can see what's the game. You know, it's really to empower the small countries, the poor countries, you know, countries who are vulnerable like Cape Verde and others, you know, to be their scapegoat, you know, and so forth. Why Morocco didn't accept it? Why Algeria didn't accept it? Only Cape Verde. So this is and I agree with my brother. You know, we need to speak out. We need to tell Americans, you know, how the U.S. government is doing, you know, what they're doing with our taxpayers' money and so forth. So I totally agree with you, and we need to fight this until the end of it.
Yeah, I would also like to add here, Bishop Teixeira, about the importance again of the delegation in Cape Verde in the beginning of June. And as you mentioned as well, and probably why it is very popular with the young people of Cape Verde, is precisely that the human rights issues which already existed in Cape Verde had come to surface at the time, and you've raised those issues, you made them sound, and this case has been suddenly sounded out to the people who have already been aware of these human rights issues in their country, but now they are I could even say horrified by the fact that not only the justice of Cape Verde, not only the highest judiciary of Cape Verde, and now we're heading to the Constitutional Court, are might consider that the extradition and the detention are constitutional in this country, but also the Cape Verdeans who are believing and who have been believing in the justice of courts such as ECOWAS Court of Justice, such as United Nations Human Rights Committee, and the open defiance of Cape Verde of this both international bodies has raised serious questions in the local community as well. And from our side, we can also say that we have undertaken questionnaires in Cape Verde to have a poll which concludes that indeed majority of Cape Verdeans are against the actions of their government, and they are in particular now horrified by the actions of the Attorney General, and which came to surface a year later, and arresting officers, etc. So, following from your trip, I think it's the beginning of awareness of what's going on, of the human rights on the global arena for Cape Verdeans, and as setting up again the example to potentially other countries who might just do the same against their normal citizens. So that's what I wanted to add to your speech.
Thank you, both of you. I wonder, I'm going to combine three geopolitical global questions, and maybe between the four of we could quickly address them. One is the embassy on Cape Verde. Is that part of the US's AFRICOM plan? And two, a progressive government is now in power in Portugal, led by a front uniting communist and socialist parties. Has that changed the approach to neocolonialism and possibilities for alliance? And then third, weren't Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau anticipated originally to become a single nation? Do any of you want to touch that, or should I move on?
I can weigh in. These aren't going to be exhaustive answers. I actually have to jump off and go back to work. But before I do, definitely it was the Cape Verdeans and the Guineans, the Angolans, who inspired the Carnation Revolution in 1974 in Lisboa, in Portugal. The Carnation Revolution, where soldiers revolted against Salazar and fascism. So there are long existing links between the Portuguese Communist Party, the revolutionaries in Portugal, in Cape Verde. And I'm hoping, hopefully we can do another delegation and continue to use social media because we know that the Cape Verdean mainstream media, and when they say the international media, of course, they mean the imperialist media, how arrogant for them to refer to themselves as the international community. They're the very antithesis of a community. But we have to be the ones to free Alex Saab. Our enemies are not going to do it. And once upon a time, I got a degree in international law and human rights. And what an absolute joke. All of these conventions, and they ride roughshod every day over all of their hypocritical language about human rights, and we're well familiar with that. I'm hoping we can connect more with the Cape Verdean youth leadership that I've had the honor of being a student of since 2009. Of course, there's language difficulties, there's generational challenges, but I think that's one of the big questions. How do we connect with them? There's a whole hip hop movement in Cape Verde. There's a Pan-African movement. It's a cultural movement. So, and hopefully my PowerPoint, the link worked. If it didn't, we'll find another way. Hopefully no one's being asked to spend $9 on Dropbox or something. That wasn't my intention, but I'll leave my Twitter and my email before I jump off. And thank you everybody for the anti-imperialist solidarity tonight.
Thank you so much for being able to join us. I have one thing I want to ask, I guess specific to you, Reverend, and Danny mentioned perhaps another delegation to Cape Verde. For the delegation earlier this summer, were any of you or the entire delegation able to meet with Alex, or were you denied that?
No, as I said in the beginning, we were denied. Well, we requested, the attorney, Dr. Pinto, requested us to meet with the ambassador Saab. They never answered up to today. There's no answer at all. So we didn't. So we tried to go by ourselves. We went to the villa. Is it Villa Verde? Villa Verde, Green Village. We went all the way there. We're like about to a house from where Alex Saab, Ambassador Saab was. So we're stopped by the police and the military and so forth. So we never had a chance to do it. But we're waiting to meet with him, but never happened. Now, in that same conversation, we request to meet with the president of Human Rights Department. She never answered us because she claimed that she went to visit Alex Saab, Ambassador Alex Saab, but apparently that never happened and so forth. So again, all these key people in a position of decision that we talked to, we called, we sent email, did not answer to us at all. No, there was a total silence. So we did not meet Alex Saab. We did not meet with none of the government people at all. So, but again, as I can say, our delegation was very helpful to the people in Cape Verde, because if today because they had a lot of misinformation about Alex Saab. I mean, even here in America, I had friends, close friends, who say, "No, don't go. He's a human trafficker. He's a drug dealer. He's this and that." You know, that's what people are putting a lot of intimidations, like fears on me. You know, so you can go to jail, blah blah, and so forth. And our mission was really to go there and make that clear. And thank God, Arena and the team did a good job with the media. So we had a lot of cover, and so we're able to speak out. I mean, even through the Facebook, through the webinar and so forth, so people become to understand more clearly who is Alex Saab, and also I made it very clear to people in Cape Verde who is President Nicolas Maduro, who is Venezuelan people and so forth, and I mean, I had a privilege to be in Venezuela for many years here in Boston, through the consulate, and as I said, we're never going to have people like Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro as president in any country, So la lucha continúa.
What about the Alex's health? Is he healthy? I thought there was a
Uh,
concern about his health.
Indeed,
I-
very good question, and I'll pick up on that because, as we all know, indeed he's a cancer patient. He has been deprived of essential medical care for the whole duration of his detention, and the health now, as you may imagine, considerably deteriorated, and it's mainly due to absolute lack of proper medical care, of medicines, of monitoring, of tests that need to be performed. And the condition has been worsening since the day one. And it's not helping the fact that, again, the psychological pressure that he is not potentially allowed to be present at his final hearing, where it is indeed his life is at stake should the worst come to the worst and the extradition be decided on. So to answer your question, the health state, it's far from good, and it's in a, as has been indeed confirmed by decisions of the United Nations Human Rights Committee. They have ordered the interim measures based precisely on the health concerns, on the medical conditions of Mr. Saab, which Cape Verde decided it is not binding upon them. Just to reiterate again the importance and the true facts of the medical conditions, which again, there has been a lot of speculation in the media, but that's the case because that's been also decided as a grave violation of human rights of Mr. Saab.
Thank you so much. I think that's the end of our questions and the end of our time. So I should pass my moderator responsibilities back to you, Yoav, but I want to thank you, Irina, Reverend Felipe, and William, and Danny as well, for joining us this evening. It's been a real honor and a pleasure to work with all of you tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It's been an honor being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina, to see you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
for
everyone.
joining.
Thanks.
Special thanks for the presenter, the speakers. Irina, have a good night. Everybody
very
else
much.
as well. And
Vencemos.
yes, and we'll see you in the next webinar.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
very
Victory, power people, people power.
Power people, people power.
Thank you.
Thank you.